Hi, Lucian. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Sudeep. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, Neil. How are you doing? We started to drop emojis for those who just joined us. We started to drop emojis in the chat box about how we are feeling about our topic today, pricing, designing our offer, pricing, and pitching it. All right. I love the Andrew, I love your emoji, I must say. Right. Let's get started. I'm aware of time, and we have two wonderful speakers that are gonna take this session away today. Very briefly, for those who just joined us, our session is being recorded. If you could keep your microphone on mute, especially if you have a noisy background, that would be much appreciated. If you could, however, put your camera on, that will also be greatly appreciated. So we have your lovely faces here on the screen. Right, so welcome to today's session. Craft your offer, set your price, and nail your pitch. Hi everyone, I'm Fiorenza Rossini. Some of you know me already. I'm a coach, I'm also a facilitator. I specialize in next step career-wise. And for the purposes of today, I will be helping, supporting your amazing group here and our wonderful speakers, Grace and Pedram. This session is part of Career Leap. Career Leap is a 6-week learning journey to support your career with clarity, momentum, and connection. Career Leap has 3 tracks. The first track is leaping into L&D. The second track is leaping into L&D leadership. The third track is leaping into L&D entrepreneurship. And today's session is specifically dedicated to our third track. So without further ado, we have Pedram Parasman, who is a program design coach and co-founder of the Leverage Accelerator. And we have Grace Fogarty, our pitch expert, who will be taking this session away and we'll be learning so much from them, I can tell you. Let's have our notebook ready. The floor is yours.
Thanks. Well, I'll go first. So, it makes sense about designing and then pricing, and then we can talk about pitching. I'm going to share my screen like this. So if you have Zoom set up on gallery view, you may want to consider putting it on speaker view, just so you can see some of the slides. So yeah, this is about crafting and pricing an offer that sells itself. And this is for you if you're an L&D professional used to being valued inside an organization, but you might struggle to translate that into a commercial offer as a consultant, coach, or a facilitator. But before we jump in, I actually just want to get a sense of who's in the room. So in chat, add a 1 if you're thinking about going solo, add a 2 if you're working on your business part-time, and 3 if you're fully self-employed, just to kind of get a sense. Okay, we've got a splattering. Okay, it's like a secret code, isn't there? So a bunch of 1s, 2s, 3s. Okay, so it's a mixed bag, right? Thank you so much for that. Well, look, this is going to be useful for wherever you are in your journey, because this session will help you price your offers so it showcases your expertise, but also aligns with what your ideal clients are already searching for and what you're best placed to solve. And here is me. I am Ped, and I've been designing learning and development programs since the year 2000, and I set up my learning and development consultancy in 2011. In that time, I've sold programs to organizations large and small across sectors. Here are some of the more well-known brands that I've worked with. And since the year 2022, I've launched 3 B2C offers. So when we're talking about creating impactful programs and selling them, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And as Fiorenza just said, at this point, my business partner and I, we specialize in helping coaches and consultants design premium programs and create more sales opportunities. So what I want to cover in this talk, this section of this session, is the roadmap to design and price an offer that sells themselves, especially if you're starting out. The 5 mistakes experts make that kill momentum or undermine your credibility. I have made all of these mistakes, by the way. The difference between offer design and program design, and why knowing the difference helps to separate great services from sellable ones. The ingredients for an irresistible offer that positions you as the obvious choice. And finally, the key to charging more. Now, as a bit of a disclaimer, much of what I'm going to share with you will likely feel familiar. And if you're anything like any of my clients, this approach will really resonate, because what I'm going to show you is a more strategic way to use what you probably already know. So things land better, you sell more, and it ultimately helps you get traction with your business quicker. So along the way, I'm going to share some key lessons and some proven tips that have worked with 65 other coaches and consultants over the last 2.5 years. But let's start with the basics then. Because when it comes to designing and selling anything, potential clients are going to be asking, is this for me and why should I care? So before we dive into the roadmap, it's worth considering what makes or breaks a successful learning and development practice, because most experts will struggle for years without getting tangible results, which can lead to frustration, burnout, or my biggest fear, having to get a job again, which we do not want. And that's because they don't understand the foundational rule of what we call leverage. And that is to tap into desire, because to sell anything, there must be something to leverage. Now, we talk about leverage because that's what we use to influence people in a good way, not in a bad way, but in a good way. So we've got to identify a strong desire. Otherwise, we can't design an offer, build a business, or have a livelihood around it. But what is a desire that we're talking about? Because it's not about your desire. It's not about what you want. It's about what your market wants, or in other words, what your ideal client wants, which leads us to the first mistake, which is more like a trap. And unfortunately, a lot of experts are especially vulnerable to this mistake. Focusing on what you can do to help. Your approach, the theories, the methods, all those beautiful, lovely, geeky L&D stuff that we love. Or they might emphasize their personal skills and experience. Either way, what this does is it disrupts the moment your potential client is asking, is this for me? It stalls the buying journey, it undermines your leverage, and it limits your ability to make the impact that you want. And this happens with something that you might have come across. It's called the curse of knowledge. Because when you're so deep in your craft, it's easy to forget what it's like to be someone who doesn't know what you know, or the benefits of what you can offer. So if empathy is one of your skills, you can use that to clarify what your ideal clients really want. And that's a key part of the roadmap. But there is a hidden trap that even when you know this, we might fall into, and I will reveal that when I share the roadmap. So here is the roadmap. Now, we call this the clarity roadmap because from our experience, clarity sells and confusion stalls. And the roadmap clears this fog. It helps you get clear on your offer, your ideal client, and where to find them. And it helps your ideal clients get clear on their problem, your value, and their decision. And that's when the yeses come in. So to design and price your offer, I'm going to focus on the bottom two parts of the roadmap: nail niche and develop offer. And we like to think about this as a compass and a map. And when it comes to nailing niche, this is your compass. And actually, before I show that, before I show what you've got to do here, I know that the word niche can conjure up all sorts of feelings, especially for any proud generalists out there. Like, and I identify as a generalist, but as a solopreneur or a small business owner, you are responsible for your marketing as well as all the other functions in your business. And it's the job of marketing to capture attention. And it's hard to capture attention for example, you can't catch a bird without a worm or a bee without a flower. So if you have the idea of cutting people out of your target audience will mean that you serve less people, you have to get rid of that idea now, because that's the second mistake experts make, trying to be all things to all people. And as the saying goes, if you try to sell to everyone, you sell to no one. So a good way to reframe niching when it comes to designing and pricing your offer is that you're not niching, you are developing a specialist product for a target market. And look, like with anything in life or business, this can evolve over time. So you're not trapped in. I've gone through a handful of niches myself, but it is important that you pick a direction of travel. It's important for your business. And more importantly, I really want to make this point, it's important for your productivity and well-being, because when you spread your attention across multiple opportunities, my personal experience is that at the best of times, I was overwhelmed by task switching and decision fatigue that gets in the way of designing. And at the worst of times, burnout. But more simply, you can designing one killer offering by focusing your limited attention, time, energy on one thing at a time. So to do that, you've got to identify an opportunity space to develop an offer around. Now, there are 9 considerations that we look at with my clients. We don't have time to cover them in this session. Plus, it's not a full part of the design process, but I am more than happy to share this niche navigator tool afterwards. I've got a link that I'll just drop in the chat at the end to help you lay out your different options and decide which opportunity space to follow. Now, the second 2 parts, although not an explicit part of the design process, but it's worth mentioning, especially if you're starting out, you've got to discover where to find your ideal clients and also build up a list and keep organized. Now, I'm sharing this with you here because, again, for those of you that are in, you put 1, like you're just starting out, or 2, you're working on your business part-time, even if you've established your business, really having a clear targetable audience and a growing list of those potential clients and a simple way of keeping track of them, it's not glamorous, but it's what makes the rest of your business easier. And I wish somebody had told me this sooner. Now, this also helps to avoid having to rely on that magical referral fairy to keep you busy forever, because, to be fair, I tried to do that myself until it stopped with no warning or fallback. And I'd rather know when my next client is coming from, rather than hope that somebody sends them my way. So I just wanted to really make this case because I feel very passionate about it, and it will help me design things much easier. So back to the roadmap. Where's the roadmap gone? There it is. Okay, so designing and pricing your offer. You've identified your opportunity space and you've got a direction of travel. Now, the next stage is to develop your offer. But this is where the third mistake comes in. You develop your offer in isolation. Now, this is a hidden trap I was telling you about. You might have empathy for people, but you then go and design your offerings based on what you think the market wants. Now, we call this market value bias. And this is the number 1 reason why you will struggle to sell your offer, because so many people now go and design their programs, build their web pages, or even go out and try and pitch their services without having spoken to any of their ideal clients beforehand. Now, this is also despite being people-oriented. Maybe even you know about design thinking or design sprints. And worryingly, I see a lot of business coaches reinforce this faulty thinking by getting you to brainstorm, research competitors, and put together something you believe will sell. Now, if you've done this, that's okay. I've made this mistake too. But what if, instead of guessing what the market wants, you go and get insider information from your ideal clients before you even design or pitch any offer? And what if your ideal client actually helped you create that offer so that it is guaranteed to sell itself? this is what the develop offer phase is about. And you can think of this phase as the map that helps you navigate between the opportunity space to your profitable offer. And the reason why this works so well is because it's based on something that we call collaborative value creation. And that is the first thing you're going to do in develop offer. You're going to go and speak directly to your ideal clients. You're going to use that list that we talked about here, sorry, and you're going to start conversations with them. Now, this isn't about cold DMing and saying, hey, work with me. This is about initiating genuine conversation. So top tip, start with people you know, ask them if they know anybody else like them, and then extend the circle outwards. Now, we teach our clients something called authentic outreach, but at its core, it's don't be a weirdo and just start conversations. Don't try and sell anything yet. And if somebody is receptive and they seem like a good fit, then you invite them to have an insider interview, or put simply, have a market research conversation. This is where you're going to go and collect insider information. Now, this now leads us to mistake number 4. When you're having this conversation, do not ask for feedback on a preconceived idea. Do not do that. What you're here to do is to collect insights. You want to ask them about the problems they've got and what pains they are causing them, because these reveal the direct costs that trigger urgency. You also want to ask them about their goals and the obstacles blocking their goals, because this reveals the opportunity costs that triggers aspirations and FOMO, both of which will help you price your offer. And I'm going to come back to that later. But I really want to make the case for this approach, because my favorite piece about this insider interviews is that it is your secret weapon to getting sales, mostly because it's not so secret. You can hide in plain sight by asking people some questions. And you're doing this by positioning yourself as a problem solver. And it's giving you a legitimate reason to reach out to people. And when somebody agrees to an interview, when you do this well, they will feel like they're getting value from you. So you're both getting simultaneously providing value, building a relationship with your target audience, and getting that priceless information that you need to design and price that clear offer. And really, it is a win-win. Now, our clients love this approach because it doesn't feel icky or awkward, and it plays to their relationship first natural instincts, which I assume that's the kind of people that you are, like relationship first people. So this also means, I should say, that you can comfortably ask at the end, would it be okay for me to loop back when I've developed something that could solve your problems? And because they've contributed to this, they're going to say, yeah, please do. No selling, no persuasion, just getting those conversations going. So going back to the roadmap, let's have a look at this last bit. So this is really about designing that clear and compelling offer. And here, I want to talk about the difference between what an offer is and what it isn't, because I had this misconception, and this can make or break your L&D business. Here's what a lot of people, including my past self, would get wrong. Because an offer isn't your coaching session, it's not your facilitated workshop, it's not your training video, it's not your service fees or anything like that. You don't deliver your offer, you deliver on your offer, because your offer is not a service. Your offer is a promise. Your service is what you're selling, the thing that you give your clients, but your offer is how you present it, the packaging that convinces clients to buy. And so I got AI to make this image, and I really like it. It's a product inside the offer. Now, the distinction is important, not because this is not, I should say, the distinction is important. Not knowing this is why we often feel frustrated when we know we have something of value, but we struggle to get clients to see it. It's not because your service isn't good enough, it's because your offer wasn't clear or compelling. So whilst your service is essential, your offer is what actually convinces someone to buy. And that's why we talk about the difference between offer design and program design. Now, speaking personally, I was really tempted to just go ahead and start designing my program and trying to sell that. But I'm telling you to pump the brakes and design your offer first, sell that, and then the program is the thing that's going to help you have the impact that you want. But you've got to sell first. So what are the components of an offer? Now, I like to think about these as having 3 layers. Now, the first layer is your core promise, the transformation that your ideal clients are going to achieve and why it matters to them. Now, you'll get this from your insider interviews. And from your client's perspective, it's answering the question, is it for me? What do I get? And why should I care? And then to answer the question, how are you going to get me there? That's layer 2, your methods, your process, your tools, your approach. And there are so many creative ways to deliver on your promise. You can give them experiences. Now, I'm not going to delve into this slide, but I can share this with you afterwards or take a screenshot. But you can do everything from done for you, do it with you, do it yourself, synchronous, asynchronous, one-to-one, one-to-many, peer-led, expert-led. There are so many different ways to deliver L&D services. You can just like pick and mix, or you can give them resources to help them implement things, educate, or engage. Now, that's another conversation altogether, but I trust your learning design skills to be able to do this yourself. And then finally, you've got your value amplifiers. So your bonuses, guarantees, urgency, and other elements that increases desire and reduces risk. Now, these are the elements that turn a strong offer into a no-brainer. They create momentum, and all the trust and preconceived value is amplified. So, final thing, pricing. And this is where the final mistake comes in. Selling time versus selling value. Because if you charge for time, you become a commodity. You're judged on price and it's a race to the bottom. So hour-based pricing, time-based day rates, I would highly recommend you move away from that, because that makes you seen as replaceable and it's hard to stand out. But when you charge for value, you become a trusted partner because you're paid for outcomes, not hours, and it helps you stand out in a sea of sameness. So some top tips on charging for value. Make sure that the outcome of your promise is tangible and meaningful. And usually in a B2B setting, you're either going to help people make money by increasing productivity, efficiency, or revenue, depending on your service, or save money, improving retention, reducing absenteeism, or lowering costs. If your offer isn't tied to making money or saving money, it's going to be treated like a nice to have instead of essential. And that's why one-off training sessions or a dime a dozen, the outcome is knowledge, maybe the beginning of some skill development. You can make a case that it has an impact or top or bottom line, but programs or consultancies that contribute to a company's KPIs or OKRs or whatever acronym they use, those are tangible and your potential clients can see a return on investment. And so you can charge more for it. And so I think I'll just end there then. We've talked about the roadmap, the mistakes, the difference between offer design and program design, ingredients of an irresistible offer, and the key to charging more. I will just leave you with these 3 final takeaways. Your clients don't care about your expertise. They care about the problems you help them solve. Co-create your offer with your ideal clients, and price for outcomes, not services. I'll stop there.
Thank you. Oh, shall I do a sort of segue, or Fiorenza, are you gonna?
I'm very happy for you to do a segue, Grace.
Lovely. Thank you so much. I just scribbled so many notes. Thank you so much, Ped. So let me just switch my brain into speaking mode. That was fascinating. And what is great is that I am going to build on some of the themes that Ped has just shared, actually, but coming at it from a different angle, which is great because, like Ped said, there's lots of things in here that you might have heard before, but actually how you hear them is what can make the real difference in terms of putting something into action. So let me get my slides up here. Wonderful. Okay, so I have slightly renamed my session from Nail Your Pitch to a pitch to remember, because when I was thinking about what to call this, I thought actually the most important thing to think about when you are pitching yourself and your business is how to stay memorable. And so I'm going to talk to you about how to make this a pitch to remember. If you're anything like me, you're now going to have the song Make This a Night to Remember in your head. You're welcome. My earrings are delightful. Thank you so much, Julia. That means a lot. I love them, so thank you very much. Okay, so a little bit about me before I get into the session. So my name is Grace. My business is Present with Grace. Get it? And I spent 12 years designing and delivering communication skills training in corporate organizations. I worked for 2 different consultancies, worked with some really big companies like Uber, BNP Paribas, HSBC, M&S, lots of big corporate clients through the consultancy that I was part of. Then 2 years ago, I moved, I left the corporate world behind. So I was probably where a lot of you are now, thinking about making the leap, and then I decided to make the leap of faith. I set up as a sole trader, working as a presentation skills facilitator, going in and doing associate work and selling programs to corporates. And then last year, I pivoted my business. I'll tell you what I do now in a second. I pivoted my focus and I set up my limited company, Present with Grace, last December. Outside of the work that I do, I'm also an actor, I'm a scriptwriter, I'm a comedian, and I'm an actor. So good, I put that on the slide twice. I've actually written a one-woman comedy that I'm performing in July. It's all about people pleasing. And what that experience means is that I know a lot about what it takes to put yourself out there, make yourself vulnerable, and have your story heard. And I bring a lot of my lessons learned into the work that I do with my clients, because I really passionately believe that you do not have to go to drama school to know how to own the room and how to own the stage. Your ex BNP Paribas. Oh, we might have seen each other. I also work and live in Hackney in East London. It's a really cool, vibrant, creative part of the city. I work in a co-working office where all the cool pods look like phone boxes. If you've been wondering if I'm in a phone box, the answer is yes. Yes, I am. So I'm on a mission to empower as many small business owners as I can, particularly who feel nervous when they present, when they have to talk about what they do, what their business does, so that they can use their business pitch to attract the clients that they love to work with. That is why I set up my business, and that is what I am here to do. So that's a little bit about me. I'd love to know a little bit about you. So first of all, you chose to sign up to this session, and I would love to know why. Why are you here today? Just pop one word or just one sentence in the chat, but tell me, what has brought you here to this session today? Development, nice. Learn something alongside like-minded people. Curiosity, looking to learn and network. Amazing, Jonathan. Networking is a huge part to pitching. Curious to learn more. Storytelling, wonderful. Career transition, yes, Natalie. I know lots of you are at that kind of nerve-wracking point. Skills and experience, new perspectives. Okay, great. So you're here, you're curious, you're open to learning, and you want to discover new things. That is brilliant, because I'm going to share with you some different ways of thinking about pitching and a business pitch that are going to help you to do that. So my next question is, what do you think of when you hear the word pitch? Again, just pop your thoughts in the chat. When I say pitch, what do you immediately think of? Love it, Natalie. Baseball. Julia, elevator, selling, time, sell, effective, exposing myself. Yeah, Erica, okay, yeah. Scary, presenting information, boring. Amina, I'm going to show you that pitching does not have to be boring. Just you wait. Selling, okay. Okay, so now another question. What kind of context do you imagine pitching in? If you were to imagine yourself pitching, where are you? Who are you talking to? Put that in the chat. I don't know, don't worry, any at all. You could have us pitching here. Yes, L&D sponsors, leaders, clients in front of many people, coffee at a conference, every moment, including lunch. Amazing. Okay, great. So that is exactly where I'm going next. So when I say pitch, there are so many different environments. When you run your own business, there are so many different environments where you might need to pitch. It could be really formal. You might be looking for funding. You might be wanting to get a new big project from a client. Maybe you're in a boardroom. Maybe you're presenting. You've got a slide deck. It's really official. It's really formal. Maybe it's when you go networking, when you want to get out there, meet like-minded people and look for potential prospects. Or it could simply be when you get asked this question, what do you do? Now, that's what I mean when I'm talking about pitching. Even though there are lots of different scenarios where you might be pitching, I'm talking here about the most general sense. It is how can you answer that question in any given scenario, whether that is over lunch, at a networking meeting, bumping into someone in a lift, a coffee, a friend, whoever. How can you answer that question in a way that is really simple, really clear, and is memorable for you and for the person that hears it? Because that is the first thing that you say in answer to that question is what leads to the next step that gives you permission to share more about what it is that you do that leads to opening doors. So that's what I'm talking about when I say pitch. It's that general term. Now, some of you have already shared in the chat, but how do you feel about pitching right now? Now, if you share one word in the chat, how does the thought of pitching, talking, about what you do, feel right now? If you've made the leap and you're already working for yourself, brilliant. Tell me, how is it going? How does that feel? How is pitching feeling for you right now? If you haven't made the leap, imagine that you have, and this is the first person you've met and you're telling them, you're telling them about your new business. Excited / courageous, love it. Exciting, refining over time, nervous, pressured, daunting. When I have a good pitch, great, yes, absolutely. Brave, okay, nice. So there's a real mix of emotion in here. There are some people, yuck, Molly, Maxine, ooh, yeah, absolutely. So pitching, it is such an important thing that we have to do as business owners. You get asked that question all the time. You have to be able to answer it effectively in one sentence, in 1 minute, in 10 minutes, however long you've got. But it can evoke some really difficult feelings. Maybe, like people have said, yucky, boring, scared, it's exposing. But I'm so glad to see that a lot of you are also saying you feel excited, brave, courageous. Because when you really get to grips with how to pitch and how to talk about your business in a way that you feel genuinely excited about, pitching doesn't feel scary or exposing anymore. It really feels comfortable. You feel relaxed, and that is going to be one of the biggest things that helps you to be more memorable. So it's great to see that some of you have already got that excitement. So there are 3 elements of what makes a memorable pitch in my mind. The first is what you say. So when we think about how to structure a pitch, there are so many different components. It is not just about typing into ChatGPT, how do I pitch my business, right? It's nuanced and it's layered. What you put in your pitch includes things like really tailoring your answer so that you're speaking to your dream client, being able to introduce yourself in a way that's succinct and clear. Being able to say something that's concise, that's compelling, that encourages someone to take action. What you say in your pitch is essential. But often when people think about pitching, they think that's all that matters. They think, oh God, I've got to know what to say. I'm going to prepare something. I'm going to have a little script. I'm going to have my elevator pitch in my head, and the prep stops there. But that is only 1/3 of the triangle, because the next part is about how you say it. Because here's the thing, you could have the best written pitch that is. It's succinct, it's slick, maybe it's funny, it's tailored. But if you walk into a meeting or you go to a networking event or a new person that you've met asks you what you do, and you just say, oh, actually, I'll do this thing that I think, yeah, it's not really that big a deal, but I've just sort of started it, and you know, how you say it, or maybe you just like, you have to present and then you start speaking in a monotone, or you rush to get the words out. How you deliver that pitch can make or break the way that that pitch lands. And so for as much time that you put into writing your pitch, it is just as important to think about how you deliver it, the energy that you have when you speak, the way you hold yourself, the words that you use to really make it known that you believe in what you do is so important. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. What you say and how you say it is underpinned by confidence, because here's the thing: you could have the world's best pitch, you could have done some body language techniques, you could have really nailed your tone of voice, you've got your breathing down, but if in your mind you are still telling yourself, nobody wants to buy from me, what I have to say doesn't matter, there's someone over there who's doing much better than I am, the what and the how crumble, because that confidence will come through in the conversations you have and the way that you talk to people. And the way that the strength of your business lives and dies on the way that you can communicate about it. And that starts with a confident mindset. So for those of you that are about to or are preparing yourself to make the move and to transition, I really encourage you to focus not only on what you're selling, how you're selling it, but really do mindset work to get yourself mentally believing in yourself and backing yourself. And for those of you that are already out there, you're hustling, you're doing it, take a moment to reflect on your mindset. Are there thought patterns that are stopping you from really being bold and courageous in the way that you communicate? Because if there's something that's going on in your mind, it might be that's the thing that's holding you back. Okay, so those are the three most important components of a memorable pitch. It's what you say, how you say, and having the confident mindset to back yourself. I'm going to hone in on the what and the how in today's session, and I'm going to leave you to reflect on your mindset and where you are right now. So let's get into it. First of all, how to nail your expert intro, right? So picture the scene. You're at a networking event, you go up to someone and you're making a coffee and someone says, oh, what do you do? What you say in those first, let's say 2 to 10 words is your hook, right? We all know about hooks when it comes to marketing content. It's about the thing you say to stop the scroll, but the concept of a hook exists in a pitch when you are talking to someone, and that comes in your introduction and the first few words you say in answer to that question. When we think about an expert introduction, we need it to be really short and have a big impact. What you say in that first sentence needs to be enough, particularly in these casual interactions. If you go in with a presentation and you've got the floor, how you introduce yourself is slightly different because you've already been given permission to speak. But in those impromptu interactions, when you're introducing yourself, you need to make a really big impact with very few words. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. This is your opportunity, first of all, to make yourself memorable, to really grab someone's attention, to pique their interest, and to demonstrate your credibility without feeling that you need to ram your career history into one sentence, right? That's the job of your expert intro. And the third thing to remember, again, I'm going to talk about this in a moment, is that when you run your own business, you don't have a job title anymore. There is no one who has written your job title on your employee contract. There is no one who's saying, no, you're an associate and you're a director. The joy of running your own business is that you can call yourself whatever you bloody well like. And I'm sorry that I just swore. I'm sorry, I won't swear again. I'm so comfortable, it just slipped out. So you can spice up your title, right? And if you need permission, I am giving you permission today to call yourself whatever you like. You can spice it up, you can give yourself a promotion, you can add in words, but what we really want to do is make an impact, keep it memorable and credible. Exactly, Julie. You've never even thought of that because you're your own boss, and that's one of the joys of being a business owner. Okay, so how do you do it? This is how to create a 2-word, impactful, memorable, and credible intro. It comprises of 2 words: the thing that you do or that you deliver, word 1. Word 2, a spiced up noun. I had to Google, is it a noun, is it an adjective, is it an adverb? English literature, ironically, I'm a scriptwriter, English literature, not my vibe, but it is a noun, okay? So you want to choose a spiced up noun to really get your point across. Now, I'm going to show you some examples, and then I'm going to ask you to do this for your job title. So just start having a think about what you would call yourself. You can start calling yourself with your spiced up title. So the first example at the top of this list, pitch experts. I used to introduce myself by saying, hello, my name's Grace, and I'm a presentation skills facilitator, actor, scriptwriter, and comedian. Now, what used to happen is people would always hear that and go, oh, comedy. And while the fact that I do comedy is, it's something that makes me stand out and it's unique, when I walk into a room of small business owners who are people that I potentially want to help, I don't want them to only hear the word comedy. What I really want them to hear is that I can help them with their pitch. So I experimented with my own title, and now I call myself a pitch expert. I've changed it on Zoom. I use it everywhere because it's simple and it does exactly what I do. Number 2 on the list, logo lady. This was the woman who designed my beautiful brand. She calls herself a logo lady. She could have gone with brand strategist, brand designer, brand consultant, but the logo lady, it's so simple, it's memorable, and it stands out. Data declutterer and solutions explorer. These are both virtual assistants that I worked with. These are the generalists that Ped talked about. They are people that can help everyone with everything, but they were both getting stuck by keeping a really general job title of virtual assistant. So I worked with each of them to help them choose what was the aspect of their business that they really wanted to shout about to use to get new clients. One person went with data declutterer, one went with solutions explorer. They both say different things, even though ultimately their business are the same, and it helps to set them apart. Website wizard is a woman who's a WordPress expert, but instead of saying WordPress expert, which she felt was a bit dull for her, she goes by website wizard. And finally, queen of rest, a woman who used to call herself, it was a really scientific name, but she's all about using rest as a strategy. She went with queen of rest. She's rebranded, and it totally sets her apart from others. Okay, so those are your food for thought. That is your inspiration. Now I want you to have a go at this. So in the chat, Ped, Fiorenza, I invite you both to do this as well if you're feeling creative. What spiced up title could you give yourself? So it's the thing that you do, and then it is that exciting noun to explain yourself. Have a go, pop it in the chat. There's no right or wrong answers. This is about getting creative. Julia, people connector. Yes, lovely, really, really nice. Having the word people in there is really powerful because when we talk about L&D, it can feel a bit, it takes the human out of it. Embodied learning trainer. Erica, I love that. Embodied, that's such a beautiful word. Community queen, Julia. Yeah, absolutely. Already, I've got this vision of you sort of bringing people towards you. Amazing. Learning solution shaper. Yeah, Neil, I like it. Shaper is a really nice word. Solution shaper, again, it's like it's making me think that it's making me think of building and creating rather than something really formulaic. Wonderful. Okay, great. Really, really good suggestions. Please keep sharing them in the chat. I'm going to move forward, but please keep sharing your ideas in the chat. It's a great space to play and get creative. But this is my permission to rename yourself and use this. Women, powerhouse. Oh my God, Kenza, yes, I'm here for it. Whatever you do, sign me up. This is your permission, right, to rename yourself. And I encourage you to experiment. Choose something and then just start using it. Put it in your LinkedIn title. Use it in the next time you introduce yourself and see how it lands. See how it lands with other people. If people hear it and they go, what? You probably haven't got it quite right. Go back to the drawing board and try something else. Have a play, get some feedback and tweak it until you've got something that's really succinct. Okay, so nice. How do you think about this with a brand versus your individual brand? Jonathan, that's a really good question. If we have time in the Q&A, please ask me that, and I will share in detail because that's a brilliant question. Okay, tell your dream client what they want, what they really, really want. This is a nod to the Spice Girls, A, but more importantly, B, this is actually building really nicely on what Ped has just been talking about. When we think about a pitch, so now we're not just thinking about the first few words you say in an introduction, but when you actually get into explaining what it is that your business does, you are not focusing on what you want to tell someone. What is really important and what's going to make your pitch more memorable is to really think about what they want to hear. Ped's already talked about this, but it's really about understanding the problem that your clients have and then explaining it in words that they can understand, because what you want, the impact that you want to have on people, when you walk into a room and you talk about what you do, and I'm talking about pitching here, but the same goes for social media content, for any marketing that you do. When someone hears you talk about your business and the problem that you solve, you want your dream client to be sitting, listening to you and thinking, oh my God, they're talking about me. Oh my God, that's literally me. Oh my God, I did that this morning. Oh my God, how do they know? Are you in my mind? How do you know? That is what we want the response to be, because that means you've said something that relates to your ideal client. And when they feel like you can see them and they relate to what you're saying, that is when they're going to sit up and pay attention and remember you and therefore take action. So this is so important. Tell them what they want, what they really, really want to hear. I'm going to touch on this and how you can do this. Think about what language does your dream client use. This isn't about how you explain their problems, you know, because you might think, oh God, she tries to think of a spontaneous example and her mind goes blank. The problem that you think that your clients might have, the way you describe it probably isn't going to match. Like, for example, if we're thinking L&D, you might think the problem is they're doing way too many boring e-learning courses, but they might think that their staff don't understand the benefit of training, right? But if you describe it in your words, people aren't going to connect. But if you describe it in their words, that's when they're going to connect, right? So think about the language, look out for the language your dream client uses. And doing the interview technique that Ped talked about, that is a great way to start mining for the language. What problem do they describe having? Again, what did they say and how did they use it? And then how did they describe how you've helped them? So once you've started working with clients, go through your testimonials and pick out the words that they use to describe the way they've helped them. Because again, this is data and you can use this language in your pitch. So don't focus on talking about what you think you can help with. Instead, explain the problem you help solve using the language that your clients use themselves, because that is going to be what makes it really, really relatable. Another way to do this is really think about what that problem looks like. So if I use an example of my own business, I help people that feel really nervous when they present, right? I could say, are you someone that feels nervous about presenting? Like, sure, that is what I do, but it's a bit boring. It's a bit like, yeah, okay, fine. What I could say instead, which is something that my ideal clients have told me, is, do you feel your heart pounding and your mind go blank the moments before you know it's your turn to speak, right? That is so much more powerful, it's more visual, and it's more aligned to the way that I know my clients describe that feeling of nerves. So really use that language that they use themselves and then describe what it looks like when they're experiencing that problem and put that in your pitch. Okay. So that's tip number 2, tell them what they want, what they really, really want. Number 3, cut the waffle. Now, when we pitch, often you will have a limited time. Maybe that is because you've got that one sentence introduction. Informal networking meetings, it's really common to have to do a 45-second, a 60-second pitch. When you go into a company, when you have a business meeting, maybe you have 10 minutes to talk through your deck, to talk about what you do. Maybe you've got longer, but generally when you have a pitch, there is always a time limit. And what we want to do is we want to cut the waffle. We do not want words that are doing you a disservice, getting in the way. You want to get straight to the good stuff. Again, this is how to make your pitch more memorable. So I've got a framework to help you cut the waffle out of your intro. This is a really helpful framework to use, particularly if you are someone who, when someone says, what do? You generally find yourself going off on a tangent. Maybe you start saying, oh, I sort of set up this business to do this, this, and this. And then I also work with these people, and then I do this and that. And that's just sort of it, really. If you're the kind of person that finds yourself adding lots of detail because you're not sure where to start, try this as a really good framework to introduce yourself. So I help. Describe who you help. I use this structure when I introduced my mission to you at the beginning of this presentation. I said I describe business owners who get nervous when they present. So describe who you help and try and be a little bit specific here. Don't just say I help corporate companies. You could say I help purpose-led startups, for example, or businesses, medium firms in the finance sector, or, you know, whatever it is that you're focusing on, describe who it is that you help. 2, what is the outcome that you deliver? What is ultimately the thing that you get them to? This really also touches very nicely on what Ped was talking about. Here is where you can really include the ultimate outcome. Ped talked about making money or saving money. This is what you put in the so they can. Often people say, I help people too, and then they stop there. But what we really need to build is why this matters. So I help, who do you help? 2, the thing that you deliver, so they can, why that matters. Again, I'm going to share my own example to bring this to life. I help small business owners who get nervous when they present to use their business pitch so they can attract more of the clients they love, right? It's really clear, and I'm hitting all 3 points. Use this structure when you introduce yourself in these informal settings. This is a really good one-liner to just have memorized to say to someone in conversation, and then you stop talking. If someone then asks you a question, then you've got permission to go into the detail. But this leads me to my next point when it comes to cut the waffle. Prioritize value over process. It is so tempting. Again, I love this image that Ped had about, like, when you know too much about knowledge, the knowledge trap, or something. It was called something to that effect, that really nice image with all the books and the ghost. When we create our own processes and we build our own businesses, we do know too much. You know your process inside out. And not only do you know it, but you really believe in it. Like, you really care about what you do. And so when someone says to you, what do you do, or how can you help me? It's so tempting just to dive into your coaching program, your workshops, your delivery, your podcast, because it's what you know and it's what you love. But ultimately, that is not what someone is interested in. What someone is interested in is the problem that you help solve. And that is why in your pitch, it is so important to talk about the value that you offer. That's why in this structure, we do this so they can, so that someone can insert the value, right? Because we want to make it really clear in your pitch from the get-go, this is the problem I solve and this is the value that I deliver. Process is important, but you talk about process when you're on the discovery call, when someone's on the sales page, when they are nearly ready to buy. That is when the process comes in. But when you're pitching, prioritize value over process. And trust me, when you stop talking about process, that is when cutting out the waffle is going to become so easy. Okay, now my final point. Those 3 points, oh my God, what was my first point? Introduce yourself like an expert. Tell them what they want, what they really, really want. And cut the waffle. That is really heavy on the what, right? I've given you some really practical things that you can do to start shaping your pitch. But as I said, it is not just about what you say, it is about how you say it. And this is where it's vital that you focus on how you own the room. What is the energy that you bring to the room or to the conversation every time you talk about your business? Because I'm a thespian, so maybe I'm biased, but I really believe that how you say it trumps what you say. Because ultimately, this is a Maya Angelou quote that I'm going to paraphrase, but she said, people won't remember what you said, or the way that you said it, they will remember the way that you made them feel. And it is so true in a pitch conversation. You really want to focus on evoking an emotion, a positive emotion or a positive feeling, because emotions are contagious. If you talk about your business and you seem nervous, full of doubt, you're confused, or you just don't really believe in what you're saying, those emotions will be contagious. Julia's just put it beautifully in the chat. People trust your tone and your body language over your words. Absolutely. Practicing your pitch is vital. I meet so many small business owners who write a pitch and they never practice it before they have to deliver it for real. And it's so obvious. It's so obvious when someone hasn't said something for the first time because they stumble over their words, or they're like, oh, that didn't sound quite right. Right? So get your pitch, write something that you're really happy with, and then practice it. Say it out loud, say it in the shower, say it while you're walking the dog, say it on the way to the meeting. Practice it so that those words flow really naturally out of your mouth. Practice is going to make it so much more effortless for you. I'm also going to, so that's one, that's the time investment piece. That's the bit that people don't want to do that is going to really make the big difference. But here's something that you can do in 10 seconds, right? This is a 10-second thing that you can do to really own the room. And I want you all to do this with me now, okay? 10-second prep. So what I'd like you to do right now, roll your shoulders back, straighten your back, tuck in your pelvis if you're standing, lift your head up so that you're looking straight ahead. Now I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth, and then smile. Lovely. That is the 10-second prep that you need to do before every time you're about to do a formal pitch. If you're coming online to present, if you're about to stand up in the room, take 10 seconds, and even do this when someone said to you, and now it's your time to speak. Just do a quick shoulders back, head lifted, breathe in, and then go. Because all of those things, they're so small, but it's so quick, and it makes such a difference to the way that you communicate and the way that you share your message. So that's it in a nutshell, how to deliver a pitch that they will remember. Nail that expert intro, have a play around with your 2 words, your thing that you do, and the really spiced up noun. Test it out and see what kind of response you get. Tell them what they want, what they really, really want. Tailor your pitch, use the language that your dream clients use so that they can recognize themselves in your messaging. Cut the waffle, focus on value, take out anything where you talk about process in your pitch, and use that lovely simple structure. I help to, so they can. It will save you a huge amount of time and make sure that your intro has a much bigger impact. And finally, own the room. Practice your pitch out loud and use those 10 seconds, shoulders back nice and straight, deep breath, smile, and then go, to really bring that energy to what you're talking about. My name is Grace. I'd love to be, thank you, Ped. Thank you very much. I'm going to pop 2 links in the chat. I would love to stay connected. Please do connect with me on LinkedIn. And I've also got a free download. It's called Fresh Pitch New Clients. And it is 7 really creative pitch frameworks that you can use, whether you are wanting to sell, if you want to share a testimonial in a creative way, you want to come across as a thought leader. There are 7 ready to go creative pitch frameworks in that guide. I've popped the links in the chat for you to use. But that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you, Ped, for your great inspiration and insights and tips that you've provided today. We are at time, but if you're happy to take a couple of questions, perhaps, that would be great. If anyone has any question that you'd like to ask Grace or Ped. Feel free to unmute.
I know that Jonathan had a question. I'm going to just come back to it in case Jonathan's here. How do you think about this with a brand versus your individual brand? Yeah, so it's a really good question. I think you're asking about the differentiation between like my title, pitch expert, and my brand. the way that I differentiate it for me is that my business is Present with Grace Limited. It has the brand that sits behind it. You know, you've seen the assets, the slides, the colors, etc. But when I go into a meeting or I introduce myself, I could say I'm the director of Present with Grace Limited. But for me, that as a title doesn't really tell people enough about what I do. It still asks questions. So I use pitch expert as my title, and the brand of my company is what's connected to Present with Grace Limited. Very much the same as if you worked for I don't know, Coca-Cola, and you were the director, right? You would say that you're a director, but your brand is Coca-Cola. I hope that, Jonathan, let me know if that helps with the question.
I think Jonathan had to leave the session, but I will try my best to tag him on the Slack channel to make sure that he hears this and sees this. Someone's asking for the links to be added in the LinkedIn group. If you wouldn't mind sending me all your links after this, Grace and Pat, and make sure that we add this so everyone can have this. Okay. We have more sessions for Career Leap. I've dropped on in the chat box our Luma event page if you want to check this out. There will be a very short feedback link that will come out just automatically after this session. Any other question?
I did have a quick question. Well, hopefully it'll be quick. And we talked about generalist. I consider myself a generalist and I'm recently stepping into freelance work. And I think one of the curiosities that I have is if I'm describing myself as an experienced designer, facilitator, and community strategist, like experience design and facilitator kind of overlap, and so does community strategy. But I guess I'm curious. I think one of the things I'm getting hung up on is like where I should be focusing on. Like, are these things, can I make them all overlap? Should they all be separate? And then I guess how that goes into pitching myself, etc. Is it context driven? So any thoughts around that would be really helpful.
I can start there. So I guess it's down to where you are in your business journey, right? So when starting out, there is a case to be made around just finding your feet, doing what comes your way, seeing who you enjoy working with, what type of work you like doing, and then taking stock and going, okay, well, what do I love doing? What do I like doing? And what can I do but I don't want to anymore? As a bit of a filtering process to go, what's next? So that's one perspective. The other perspective is doing all these things, or perspective is one thing, but it is one way of thinking about it. But one thing I would recommend that you do is go and speak to samples of the target audience that you want to work with, and that will help you answer the question of, do these things overlap or not? Because one thing that I know that I have been responsible for doing, and I have a current client I'm trying to talk him out of trying to shoehorn in all these different things that he wants to put into an offer for a target group. I'm like, well, have they told you they need that problem being solved, or is that just something that you want to do? And that it can be very frustrating when people then just don't get it. So all those different pieces, I can see them fitting together, but it depends on who you're wanting to target and what problems they want being solved.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Sarah. Is there any other question now, or are we happy to wrap up this amazing session today? All right. Thank you again so much, Pat and Grace. Very grateful for your time and generosity in sharing all this amazing stuff with us. Thank you so much. Have a lovely afternoon, morning, evening, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.